A radical Sunni group is claiming responsibility for two powerful suicide bombings outside the Iranian embassy today. At least 23 people have been killed. The deadly blast that occurred in southern Beirut burnt out cars and damaged buildings. Iran's ambassador to Lebanon confirms an Iranian diplomat is among those killed. As CNN's Nick Pettin-Walsh reports, Azam Brigade, a radical Sunni group, says it has carried out the attacks.
After claiming responsibility for a number of minor-scale rocket attacks launched from Lebanon towards Israel, prescribed late last year by the United States as a terrorist group. Linked, though, to al-Qaeda, it is said, and I think many too believe them to be acting for the same goals as the Syrian rebel movement across the border inside Syria. Their statement claiming responsibility clear on two things. They want to see the Iranian-backed Hezbollah movement, that's a key political and militant force here inside Lebanon, that's involved fighting alongside Bashar al-Assad, the Syrian regime's forces, in that civil war. They want to see them pull out of the Syrian conflict, and they wanted to see the release of prisoners too. They also added some details saying that the two, quote, heroes behind the attack, that's their words, were in fact Lebanese Sunni men. Now that's important because that's a bid to try and suggest that they're somehow acting in concert with sectarian tensions here inside Lebanon. They're not, for example, Syrians attacking a Shia diplomatic post like Iran's embassy here inside Lebanon. They're in fact Lebanese people aggrieved at that growing sectarian division, and that's the point that the statement is trying to make. But the real fear, I think, too, is the nature of the tactics. Two suicide bombers, an attack like that has not been seen inside Lebanon, Beirut for decades at least, Pauline.
For decades, the Kennedys have captured the imagination of the American public, and now another member of that famous family is stepping into the global spotlight. Caroline Kennedy rode in a horse-drawn carriage to the Imperial Palace in Tokyo. She then presented her credentials as U.S. ambassador to the Japanese Emperor. Caroline Kennedy is the daughter of the former U.S. President John F. Kennedy, who was assassinated in Texas 50 years ago this week. Thousands of people lined up the streets of Tokyo, hoping for a glimpse of Caroline Kennedy. We have details in this report.
And waving, thousands of Japanese lined the streets to watch her daughter fulfill her father's sojourn. She's completing the mission he couldn't fulfill, says Jugo Shibazaki. This is significant here. JFK was to be the first U.S. president to visit Japan, but he was assassinated. 50 years later, nearly to the day of his death, his only surviving child made her way through the streets of Tokyo by horse-drawn carriage to the emperor. She passed by many in this crowd who witnessed the first ever live TV images broadcast out of the U.S. to Japan 50 years ago. News coverage of the assassination. Images of the two young Kennedy children seared into the collective Japanese memory. Caroline is like my friend, she says. Of course, we are in totally different worlds, but to me, she is special. This is the sort of enthusiasm usually reserved for pop stars or the Japanese royal family.
Do you remember anyone ever getting this excited about a U.S. ambassador here in Japan?
Heck no, say the Watanabes, who traveled 200 miles to be here. And ask anyone about job qualifications?
Caroline Kennedy doesn't have a lot of diplomatic experience.
That doesn't matter, she says emphatically. She can do the job. This is a country, after all, where bloodlines trump all. Why American Nancy Nichols, who lives in Japan, says this child of Camelot is royalty here.
Making a full circle and closening the bonds that we have, and I think it's great.
After a brief ceremony with Emperor Akihito, Ambassador Kennedy returned to her carriage to begin her path in U.S.-Japan history.
We now take our second break.
His Excellency the President, Chair Professor Dr. Alhaji Yahya AJJ Jami. The organizing committee of the Miss 22nd July Scholarship Pageant proudly presents the finals of the 5th edition of the Scholarship Pageant, taking place on Saturday, December 7, 2013 at the Penchemi Hall, Paradise Suites Hotel. The scholarship pageant is geared towards promoting excellence among girls in line with Vision 2020 for sustainable growth and development. The pageant is a display of academic potentials, talent, and beauty. The theme for this year is promoting positive attitudinal change for sustainable development. the role of the youth. Support the Miss 22nd July Scholarship Pageant as the scheme will benefit all and sundry.
Over to sports. The 2013 Manjai Knockout Cup final has failed to produce a winner after the game between Marimo Football Club and Brusubi Park Foot was stopped with less than 10 minutes remaining. Brusubi Park Foot were leading 1-0 when the central referee decided to stop the game due to darkness. Momodu S. Jala watched the latest contentious end to the final games in Manjai.
Brusubi Park Foot were just under 10 minutes away from winning the 2013 Manjai Knockout Cup trophy when the game was controversially stopped due to darkness. With the Brusubi fans already in celebration mood, central referee Babukar Bas decided to stop the game when visibility becomes less clear. Brusubi came into the game casing their first major title in the Manjai Nawetan. In fact, they are appearing in the tournament for the first time, having qualified to the Nawetan proper with the narrowest of margin. Marimo Football Club of Manjai Kunda, on the other hand, is one of the giants of the Manjai Nawetans. The Father Golf Sports Complex was virtually filled to capacity as Brusubi Park Foot Football Club attempts to make history. The game started some 40 minutes late, but when the central referee finally got the game underway, it was Marimo who gained the upper hand, trying to impose some early dominance, but Brusubi stood up to the test. The debutants kept their composure, making it tough for their opponents. The cautious approach by both teams resulted in few clear-cut chances being created, and the first half ended in a stalemate. The second period saw both teams showing some attacking intent, with Brusubi Park Foot growing in confidence as the game progresses, with their striker Momodu Lamin Silla causing all sorts of problems for the Marimo defenders with his pace. The breakthrough finally came in the 56th minute when Momodu Lamin Silla made another busting run down the right flank before whipping in a dangerous cross into the box, forcing Marimo's Boubacar Diallo to slice the ball into his own net for an own goal, which gave Brusubi the lead. Trailing by a goal to nil, Marimo started moving forward in numbers, desperately searching for an equalizer, with their coach effecting changes, bringing on fresh legs. The Manjai-based team pressed very hard, but the visitors from Brusubi defended pretty well. But with the clock fast ticking towards the end of the game, darkness also started taking its toll in the game, and the visibility became increasingly poor, which wasn't ideal to play football. The referee then called the two captains to tell them they need to stop the game, but the Brusubi Park Foot players objected to the decision, resulting in a brawl, with some Brusubi players attacking the referee and his assistants, who had to be rescued and whisked away by the security. 3 of the Brusubi players involved were shown red cards by the referee. The decision to stop the game with less than 10 minutes to play left the Brusubi players, officials and fans furious, who were leading at the time by 1-0 and on course to make history. So now, despite Brusubi Park Foot leading 1-0 when the game was stopped, with less than 10 minutes remaining, the Manjai Kunda Sports Committee has now decided to replay the game fresh, a decision they said was based in accordance with the rules and regulations guiding the Manjai Nawetan competition. The date for the replay is Friday, 21st November. Marimo has no query replaying the game, but Brusubi, who were leading and just few minutes away from winning their first major title, said they are not going for any replay. That is the controversy hanging over the Manjai Knockout Cup final. What will happen next? Only Friday will tell. Momodu Jallo, Grts Sports.
And from sports, a quick look at the headlines. President Jammeh is among scores of leaders in Kuwait for the 3rd Arab-Africa Summit. ECOWAS energy regulatory operators are meeting in Banjul to discuss energy regulations in the region. A radical Sunni group, the Azam Brigade, is claiming responsibility of a twin suicide bomb attack at the Iranian embassy in South Lebanon, which claims the lives of 23 people. And Toronto City Mayor Rob Ford has lost his powers to his deputy, prompting the embattled mayor declaring outright war with the city council. That's all in this edition of the news. To stay with Grts.